That summer in 1971, I was with my husband and children in the mountains of northern Georgia while he was working with the camera crew of the movie Deliverance. On weekends, some of the cast and crew and their families would take the rafts out on the river for a little R&R. They filmed on the same part of the Chattahoochee River we rafted on, and of the 8 of us on this particular Sunday afternoon, 4 of us, including myself, had rafted down this stretch before. But the river was different this time, low from several days with no rain. Different paths had to be taken through the many rapids. On the last set of rapids, we made an almost fatal mistake. The raft I was in got turned around, went over a 4-foot drop backwards, and became stuck there by the churning action of the water. The raft was trapped in a hydraulic, a whitewater phenomenon, which held the raft against the rocks. I was thrown out and got caught between the raft and the rocks, with the force of the river pouring down on my head and the suction of the hydraulic motion pulling me under. A man inside the raft held my arm and tried to pull me back into the raft, but the most he could do was enable me to catch an occasional quick breath before the water sucked me back down. I was truly stuck between a rock and a hard place. Very consciously and calmly, no panic at all, I knew I was going to die. It was just a matter of how. Being smashed into the rocks was painful, so I decided drowning was the better choice. The next time my head popped out of the water with my last breath, I told him to let go, and he did. I felt the water pull me under, and I relaxed into it. I knew there was no point in struggling as I breathed in the water, and everything went black. For a moment. The next thing I knew, I was 100 feet above the river, looking down at the raft stuck against the rocks below. I saw the 2 men in the raft looking for me to come out from underneath. I saw the other woman who had been in our raft downstream clinging to a rock. I watched my husband and my teenage sister, who had rafted without incident down the rapids ahead of us, come running back down the hill to find out why all the debris was floating down the river. We had taken everything out of their raft and put it into ours in case they flipped over, but they went down so easily, we just decided to jump in and follow them down. From above, I watched my husband climb onto a rock in the river. He couldn't hear what the 2 men still in the raft were shouting to him over the roar of the water. He had no idea where I was or what had happened, but he knew I was missing. He looked as if he wanted to jump in to try to find me, and I suddenly found myself at his side, trying to stop him because he wasn't much of a swimmer, and I knew there was no point. When I reached out to stop him, my hand went right through him. I looked at my hand and thought, oh my God, I'm dead. In that instant, total knowledge of reality appeared to me, and I saw the multi-dimensionality of the universe. My consciousness expanded so far beyond the physical plane that I was no longer aware of it, nor of myself. I was so much a part of it all, there was no distinction. My consciousness was a brilliant flash of light, and I was allowed to see into it for a brief moment and experience a feeling of love so profound, powerful, and overwhelming that I can only describe it as pure bliss, even though that doesn't begin to describe it. Suddenly, I was whisked away and found myself traveling rapidly through a vortex toward a beautiful white light in the far, far distance. I continued to experience an overwhelming feeling of love within me and around me. There was no fear, no anxiety, no worry. I even felt as if I'd done this before and was remembering that I was going home. I was filled with joy. I had no sense of a body, no feeling of limitations or boundaries. Yet I was still me, and all the while aware that I was having this experience. Before long, I realized I wasn't alone. There was someone whom I can only describe as a loving being of light traveling beside me at the speed of light. We communicated mentally. This was someone I have always known, and I knew that as soon as I sensed the presence of this being. Yet I cannot now tell you now who it was. I didn't have the sense that it was any familiar religious figure or deceased relative, but rather a special friend who was always with me wherever I am, perhaps my guardian angel. This being told me telepathically that I had a choice about going back. I thought, no. I want this to go on forever. Suddenly, we burst into the light, and a whole new reality was revealed to me, similar to the physical world, but in this higher vibration, more colorful, more beautiful, more amazing. I saw plants, trees, mountains, lakes, animals, and shimmering crystal-like buildings, some very large and ornate. I saw beings moving about, light beings, going about their daily lives. They don't have physical bodies, but they are distinct fields of energy. They don't walk, they float. They have lives much like ours, but without the struggles and sorrows. They are artists, musicians, dancers, singers, inventors, builders, healers, and creators of magical things. Things they will manifest in their next lifetime in the physical universe. Again, the being of light told me it was my choice to stay or go. But there was more for me to do in that life back there, and it wasn't quite time for me to leave. Still hesitating, I was told that if I chose to go back, I would be given certain knowledge to take back with me to share with others. After much discussion, I agreed to go back and suddenly found myself in front of a tall cone-shaped building, so tall it seemed to go on forever. I was told that this was the Hall of Knowledge. I entered the building and flew spiraling upwards through what appeared to be shelves of books, like in a library, many millions of books, and I flew through them all. When I reached the top, I burst through into a kaleidoscope of colors, and at the same time, my head popped out of the water. I was downriver about 10 yards from the raft. I immediately became aware of where I was and grabbed for the nearest rock. I was able to pull myself up and I coughed up a lot of water. I was in a state of shock, but needed no medical attention. I don't know how long I was under the raft. No one was looking at their watch at the time. It could have been 3 or 4 minutes. It could have been 10. Although there was no time where I had been. I can't say that I was clinically dead, but I have no memory of struggling under the water or trying to hold my breath until I reached the surface. I've been a swimmer, water skier, and surfer, so I've had plenty of close calls underwater before when I thought that I might die, but nothing like this. These other times I remember perfectly well struggling to reach the surface with my lungs about to burst. What I do remember during the time my body was in the water and under the raft is what I have told you.